I welcome all my panel members. I think with my presentation already the context has been set. Nobody can deny the fact that augmenting revenue is as important as safeguarding the existing revenue. Because we all keep talking about growth which is incidental. My boss keeps on saying that inflation and a natural growth in the economy contributes to growth in the revenue. What has been your contribution in terms of augmenting the same? Now that is $1 million question, because every time we go and we tend to show the statistics in terms of the growth, so majority of the same would be attributed either to change in the tax rate or because of enhancement in the units that are consumed that are incidental to the general growth in the economy. So what has been our contribution on the same? There was a brilliant article published by Honorable Revenue Secretary, Government of India, I think a month back, wherein he was mentioning about the tax buoyancy. Tax buoyancy is the ratio of growth in the tax in comparison to growth in the GDP. And when we are talking about GST, there has been 1.25% tax buoyancy that is attributed to GST. But that again is incidental. What is the role of the department? What are the measures that the department instituted in augmenting the revenue? So we are all sitting and all of us are interested, especially the host state is interested in knowing these ideas that are coming from different parts of the country. So again, I'll set the ball in motion by requesting Mumbai, Maharashtra, which I think has a major share in the revenue of the country. So again, I take this opportunity to invite Ms. Nidhi Choudhary to share her thoughts on the same.
Thank you, sir. I am representing the state of Maharashtra, which contributes around 15% of the total GST revenue of the country. And from around 1.7 lakh crore in the year 2017, last year we could achieve 2.7 lakh crores of the GST collections in the state of Maharashtra. The challenges that lie in Maharashtra may be similar to the other states as well. Evasion is one thing which has been hampering the tax administration, which has been the biggest challenge for the tax administrators since the taxation was introduced by the governments. And to address that, the ways and means almost similarly are implemented across the states. We do scrutinies. Maharashtra conducts approximately 20 to 30,000 GST scrutinies every year. Audits, around 3 to 4,000 of GST audits take place. Raids, investigations, we should technically call them investigations. So around 1,300 investigations took place last year. Those 1,300 investigations involved a lot of risk, crores of risk was involved in those investigations. We could recover some 809 crores in cash from the raids that were conducted by our INV, A, B, C, and the other Mufassil INVs. A similar amount was recovered in ITC also. Now, how are we using probably this to technology to address these issues? The GST allows a taxpayer to collect tax from the citizen and deposit it to the government. So the taxpayer essentially is an intermediary. He or she is given a right to collect the tax on behalf of the state. So we take registration very seriously. And in registration, the fake registrations, which changes the very dynamics of the tax collection, is a big challenge which almost all the states are facing. In our state, since the introduction of GST, 7,500, approximately this number of non-genuine taxpayers have been identified. And they have passed on benefits to 23,000 plus taxpayers. And this involves an amount to an extent of 10,000 crores. So you can understand the dynamics which is involved in fake registrations, fake invoicing. So the state of Maharashtra and the Commissioner GST takes personal follow-up of how the registration is happening. And the pilots which are being introduced by the GST the government of India also are largely initiated in Maharashtra when the electricity bill authentication or the registration document authentication at the time of registration is happening. So these technological initiatives are being taken very seriously. At the time of registration, in the first month after registration, 3 months after registration, so there are rigorous follow-ups being happening of these newly registered taxpayers. And now our pace of monitoring it is so good that within the first 3 months, we are able to identify a non-existent taxpayer. And we are able to curb and control the ITC which is being passed on and which is being blocked also in time. Unlike what was happening earlier, that people would pass on ITC to an extent of crores, would move out. Because what is going to happen? Because unfortunately, people are ready to spend time, 60 days in jail. And they are not bothered. They are saying that ठीक है 4-5 करोड़ ITC pass on हो गया है, 60 days के beyond क्या है, वापस घर आ जाएंगे. Because न्यायपालिका से judgment आने में time लगता है. हम लोग arrest करते हैं, 93 arrests we made last year. A similar or probably more number of arrests will be done for the non-existing taxpayers this year. But because of the otherwise inbuilt things that is happening in society, people are ready to commit economic crimes and enjoy lives unless the courts decide. So our intention is to curb it in time, and that's where probably the NGTP dashboard, which we have introduced and which we are very closely monitoring. Maharashtra was the first state to declare the non-genuine taxpayers as ab initio non-genuine, which means that today if I'll find someone to be a non-genuine taxpayer, I will declare him or her to be a non-genuine from the date of inception, which is what is not happening in other states. Because of the 7,500 non-genuine taxpayers that I said, 4,000 plus belong to the state of Maharashtra, and they have been declared non-genuine since the date of inception. And that affects not just that taxpayer, but every such beneficiary who want to deal with such non-genuine people. So that is one way, sir, in which we are trying to curb this biggest menace of taxation, which is the fake registration and the fake people coming into the tax network and trying to generate revenues and fly by weather. So we are trying to stop them through this mechanism. And I'm sure there are many more ways. And indirect taxation is just one thing. There are a lot of things that can be done in direct taxation. There are a lot of other non-tax resources which need to be pumped up by all the state governments, local government revenues, which also need to be augmented. But over to other speakers to probably delve on them. Thank you, sir.
So Nidhi ma'am has brought the issue of significance of taking action against these fake ITC transactions, and for doing the same, she spoke about two very important things, that is cancelling the registration ab initio and also exercising vigilance at the time of initial registration. Now, I would request Honorable Secretary Revenue Government of Haryana to share his views on ways and means of augmenting revenue, be it GST revenue. See, this discussion is not limited only to GST. Now, I think I need to make it very clear. GST happens to be the biggest contributor. तो वैसा एक तरह से हो जाता है कि आप किसी के बारे में भी बोलो, उसके बारे में वो एक तरह से रिलेट हो जाता है. तो किसी भी रेवेन्यू के बारे में अगर अपन बात करें तो फंडामेंटल केनन्स ऑफ टैक्सेशन और टैक्स अप्रोप्रिएटनेस, टैक्स प्रोप्राइटरी क्या कर सकते हैं?
Thank you very much. So I'll also rather broadly talk. Basically, our state's figures have been rather given in the previous presentations also. We have been doing it much better in many of the fronts as far as Haryana is concerned, because we have certain natural advantages, and we have got our own growth rates actually explained. First of all, I wish to convey my sincere thanks to Rajasthan government and also to ELETS for having organized such a workshop, which we actually do not have it quite often in a national level forum. And sharing of the success stories is one of the most important and significant things that we can assume, so that actually we get a overall idea, we learn from them. We also rather try to introduce, we rather actually do not risk where we the other fellow has already failed after experimenting it. So that is one. Such workshops are actually very very useful, at least in the point of view of learning the things. And now it is very important. As per I'm coming from state. Basically, revenue augmentation is more relevant to the national level, but it is almost as equal or as important to the state also. Basically, we are in a federal structure. We have to rather augment our sources. We have to rather actually contribute. We have to be self-reliant so that we rather actually be a very robust unit to the national level states, countries union structure also. Now, as far as the augmentation part is concerned, policy and governance reforms are concerned, particularly after the COVID-19. COVID-19 is very important because basically we have actually spent a lot, not only we, each and every country, every state in the individual country, they have all spent a lot of money on the healthcare facilities, expenditure on very preventive steps and other things. There is a huge expenditure which has been spent on these issues. Now, to overcome that one, and of course, in that process of lockdown and other things, we have already lost a lot of economic activities. Every economy in the entire globe is actually has slowed down literally. Now we have to rather revive it. Now the revival process has already started. But is this process very even, or is this process very uniform? Which is actually a very fundamental question we have to raise to ourselves. Basically, many units, you all know very well how many units have been, because there are certain challenges which are very much there in the entire system, revenue system actually. Like you can say, there are global policies on climate change that actually affects the individual units, individual systems. And you can say similarly the demography means aging factors, aging population, that affects a certain level of people. Now automation system, that is also rather affecting the certain sector. So there are many things actually which were already there. They got very amplified, very much amplified during this COVID season. And many of the units could not rather sustain beyond certain level, and they had to rather go off. Now, after this amplification, we got exposed to this one. These things, these minor challenges or deficiencies which have already been there in the system, they got exposed to a very great extent. Those low survivors or the low producing economies or systems, they got eroded or they got washed away in this particular entire issue. Now that has to be revived. In the G20 also, this issue was actually discussed at length. You may be knowing it. The people said that the economies should be, all the countries should be allowed to rather get back to their normalcy, giving special emphasis on equity and also on sustainability. The growth should be there is no doubt, but it should be rather giving an importance to the equity. Equitable growth should be there, and it should be having a sustainable, because we have already conducted our 26 COP 26 27, which has again been reiterated in the G20 also. Now the issue is that these our specific goals or targets for the which have been rather committed nationally or globally at the COP 27, they have certain advantages and disadvantages. Of course, we can be a sustainable world in the next day, but the issue is that it is going to affect certain industries very strongly. Though I am from a state where we have almost 66 or 70% of our entire state is in the UNCR. People earlier actually opted for NCR thinking that we will get a lot of benefits out of it. But later on, a fellow sitting in Charki Dadri or Bhiwani, which is quite far away from the national capital of Delhi, is not having any advantage. He has not got any SOPs. He has not got any advantage. Instead, all the restrictions being imposed on the NCT Delhi or Gurgaon, or for that matter, even Faridabad, is being imposed on him also. The industries are actually already getting rather so much of restrictions and penalties on those issues. Now the issue, we have to rather develop the tax reforms, or the tax system has to accommodate these requirements. Because in the overall way, if we are seeing it, the what are the promising industries, promising economies, that has to be rather given a certain level of SOPs. There is no point in giving a pyrolysis unit, some tax reform, tax rebate in the NCR area or in and around the area, because this is going to be anyway shut down in a couple of years. We have to rather make it very clear that we have to discourage certain things and we have to encourage. Like you see, incidentally, I am also the Director General of New and Renewable Energy Department, Government of Haryana. Now, in those areas, we have got specific targets to be achieved as a country as a whole. Now we have already done. Rajasthan is having a very big achievement in case of solar pumps. It is having a very good achievement in terms of the solar power, solar panels. It is actually standing number one in many of these renewable energy sectors. Now, this particular area has to be rather actually addressed and they have to be rather in cash. So we have to rather give the shops in this area. Probably we have to invest or we have to rather give tax concession to those industries and those enterprises which are into the research and development. That is one area we have to do, those which are actually investing in the research and development, which will rather reduce the overall cost of the industries in the overall period, over a period of time. That has to be rather taken into consideration. So my point is that when we are actually framing such policies, we have to rather take into account these things. We know that any augmentation process in the tax system should have certain specific factors to be addressed to. Tax administration has to be taken into account. We have to rather make a proper tax designing framework, and we have to check all the evasions or any of the tax evasions or avoidance, that we have to rather actually, and we should also rather look into the interaction, whatever is the interaction among different types of taxes we are actually introducing. So in that way, not only in the central, and we have to rather share the information as a central and state, whether it is applicable globally also. We have to rather share the information so that any revenue leakage can be effectively plugged. These are all some of the things actually we have to address it in the governance or in the policy reform section. Now, as far as Haryana is concerned, as I told you, we have already rather actually moved about in the transparent and electronic system. It is advantageous in many things, many ways, and it is also disadvantageous in certain other points also. I agree to that point also. But we have made it very transparent. We have made it very transparent, time bound. That is one more advantage. We have made all the clearances, all the systems more and more actually time bound. So in that way, we are also rather actually, we have prepared a portal, HEPC portal is there, ease of doing business. We are standing at the top 4-5 states. So we are doing our level best actually in collection of the revenue. The portals have been made for all the revenue collections or tax payment, everything that is all done. So that in a click, actually, even the top boss can rather actually examine the things, how, where we are actually lacking, what should be the improvements required in that sector. So things are going on in a very dynamic way. We will be willing to rather take the outcome of this particular workshop also for our benefit, and we will try to implement it. We are very proactive in that way. So we will be rather actually looking forward for that also. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, if I can summarize the same, Sir spoke about creating a business friendly environment in the state. He's talking about tailoring the industrial policy of the state and the investment policy of the state in a manner that is more conducive not only for the businesses to exist but also to flourish and grow more. So we have different perspectives that are coming up. One is if one is talking about reducing the tax evasion, we are also talking at the same time creating an ambience of investment and growth in the state which will contribute more. क्योंकि एक एनालिसिस आता है, जब कोई आया ही नहीं है तो चोरी किस बात का होगा? आपके घर में अगर कुछ है तो कोई आके चोरी करेगा। जब आपके आपके घर में कुछ ढंग का है ही नहीं है तो चोरी किस बात का होगा? So with these few words, I would again continue the league of discussion.
Thank you, sir. Carrying forward the discussion, like we have already talked about commercial taxes, we've talked about industrialization and investment. So I think I would like to talk about the tax base other than commercial taxes. They may not be such big contributors to the economy of the state, but nevertheless, they are significant. And these are sectors where small tweakings can conveniently raise revenues for the state. For example, registration and stamps. If the states work towards automation in the sector and rationalization of rates, this will bring about a change which would barely matter, rather, I should say, matter in the sense it wouldn't pinch the common user. It wouldn't cause much hassle in terms of the systems in place, but nevertheless, it will augment the revenue for the state. If our DLC rates were reflective of the true market prices, and if our systems of registration were online with no middlemen, I think that will increase the revenue of states from registration stamps many times, and it still is a significant contributor and it can be strengthened further. Likewise, though it may not relate to all states, but excise is again a contributor where a lot of work needs to be done in terms of automating the system and checking the leakages that happen there. So these are two revenue streams other than commercial taxes where states we need to strengthen the systems in place, simplify the systems in place, which will go a long way in augmenting our revenues. And apart from this, I think the states should never forget to focus on the non-tax revenues. They are equally important avenues for a state. Sources like mining, for a state like Rajasthan, mining royalties contribute an important portion of the annual collections. And here, if we can introduce automation to check leakages, things like connecting the e-way bills with the Ravannas to check overloading, these are changes which initially people would resist, but they go a long way in augmenting the state's revenue. Similarly, we can think about other sources like when we come to local bodies, points like monetization of assets of the government. This is another aspect which governments have to think about because that's one thing which is in abundance with a lot of states and remains underutilized. So I believe that's another aspect we need to focus on. And in this, I think there was the one example which I came across was I haven't been to China myself, but I heard about no Changi Airport. I think is in Singapore. I was reading about this. They have this concept of naming rights where they gave these naming rights to HSBC for some indoor waterfall, and it's called HSBC Rain Vortex, and that created a lot of revenue for the airport. Just for those naming rights, they could earn a lot of revenue from HSBC. Even Delhi Metro has done this to some extent. There is some station they've named Indus Metro Station. So things like these, which practically cost nothing to the state but are very important revenue streams, must also be explored. So I think, as sir said, घर में कुछ होगा नहीं तो चोरी कैसे होगा? So revenue augmentation is a very holistic concept, and we will have to look at all possible streams of revenue that are there, and every stream has its own kind of leakages or different strategies for its augmentation, and we'll have to look at it in a very holistic manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Namrata ji. So now I would request CCT Chhattisgarh to share his views.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to thank Rajasthan for conducting this workshop and giving us opportunity to share our thoughts, learn from the experiences of other states. I would like to continue with what Namrata ji said here. Exploring the other avenues of revenue is important other than the tax. So keeping that in the mind, the government of Chhattisgarh tried to unlock the potential, unlock the revenue in terms of property tax, etc., by regularizing the encroached lands at some concessional rates. So that has been one of that not only did augment the revenue, it also gave people the ownership rights on those lands which they were anyway occupying for a long period of time. So that started a chain of uh, economic activities. After getting their ownership rights, they could loan it, they could get loans against it, etc. Coming to the GST part, uh, just as various speakers since morning have mentioned, various states are implementing a lot of initiatives at the state level as well as utilizing the GSTN portal. What my experience in last 3 months has been, there is still a long way to go where in GSTN can play uh, an important role in for the convenience of the tax administrators. Lot of reports which can be auto generated, auto populated, and lot of analysis can be done. Right now we are using GST Prime, BIFA, and BO, etc. Again, this forum should be utilized not just for the purpose of the tax administrator. I would like that we receive comments from the public also. During the lunch session, we came to know that various associations are here. So, what are their expectations from the tax as administrators? We would like to understand, and how is it going across the states. For example, Chhattisgarh being a mining predominant state, as Sir earlier spoke during his presentation, uh, the royalty does make a big chunk of our revenue collection of the year, along with the taxes of the GST and VAT. But there has been demands from the mining associations that the royalty as well as the tax forms a big part of their revenue outgo. So similar such, so we need to interact much and more and more with different associations and try to understand how can we incentivize businesses as well while not hurting our revenues. So I once again congratulate Rajasthan for doing wonderfully well, almost 25 percentage of growth since the inception. I would like to flag two more issues where the fake drive is going on. Again, from the point of taxpayer, I would like to flag this issue in this forum and invite comments. Uh, since the Maharashtra said that I have an issue cancellation of the ITCs, uh, we had been receiving representations from the buyers of uh, those products for which they are claiming ITC, that they are not, and many a times they might not be aware that they are purchasing it from a fake buyer. They might be making an online transaction and to an entity, and later on they might that entity vanishes or in about 2 3 months or so. So right now we as administrators collect, we cancel the ITCs according to the act only. But how do we safeguard the interest of the buyers also? We need to think over, and maybe this forum can deliberate on that. Uh, how can we not hurt the interest of the buyers who are genuine, and not no, we cannot use the same stick for everybody. That is what my point is. And again, like our state's revenues are more from mining sectors and maybe power sector. Most of our outputs from the state are consumed outside the state. So, being a destination based, consumption based tax, we see that whenever we review our taxes, we find that most of it is net outflow from Chhattisgarh. So, I'm aware that the compensation scheme ended in July, but I think in the council or maybe all the CCTs are present here, or maybe there is discuss some kind of consensus across the country, whereby how do we ensure that such states, there are many states like that, Uttarakhand, for example, uh, mostly which are based on mining, and the manufacturing states, which had earlier given incentives for industries to come, and now the consumption is outside the state. So there is a tax loss to them. So how do we reconcile those interests with the GST Act and the national policies? I think we should deliberate on those also. I think for now that's it from me. Thank you.
Very interestingly, CCT Chhattisgarh has thrown open two matters for discussion: whether in a nation where we are talking about one nation, one tax, can we have a differential treatment when it comes to states that are going through various stages of development? There may be some states that require more support in comparison to others. Time and again, it has been made very clear that there are different ways and means of compensating those states other than GST compensation. So we are also going with the same thought process. Second, इन्होंने एक ITC के बारे में एक बात बताया. मैं इसके बारे में मतलब मेरे टाइप के बहुत सारे यहाँ पे लोग अगर मौजूद है तो रिलेट कर पाएंगे. फेक आईटीसी के मामले में हम आईटीसी रिवर्सल करवाने का काम उनसे करवाते हैं जिसने नॉन एग्जिस्टिंग डीलर या जो कैंसल डीलर से किसी भी प्रकार का ट्रांजैक्शन किया है, एंड देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी दैट हिज ट्रांजैक्शन में बी जेन्यून. ये बात वो आ जाता है कि आप घर आते हो, घर आने के बाद जो है ना आपके फादर ने देख लिया आप कोई लड़का जो है ना सिगरेट पी रहा था, आप बगल में खड़े थे, घर आते आपके पिताजी ने आपको थप्पड़ मारा, आपने बोला मैंने तो नहीं पिया था, तो बोले तुम उसके साथ थे. दूसरे दिन जो है वापस आके थप्पड़ मारे, वो बोले मैं मेरे साथ जो है उसने भी सिगरेट नहीं पी, वो बोले नहीं वो किसी और के साथ खड़ा था, वो सिगरेट पी रहा था. अब मुद्दा ये है मुद्दा ये है व्हेन यू सी इन द वर्ल्ड ऑफ बिजनेस, नाउ दैट इज हाउ पीपल हु आर नॉट फिट टू बी इन द सिस्टम गेट वीडेड आउट. हो सकता है योर ट्रांजैक्शन इज जेन्यून, हो सकता है यू हैव अ प्रूफ ऑफ पेमेंट, हो सकता है यू हैव अ प्रूफ ऑफ डिलीवरी ऑफ द गुड्स, बट बाय डिजाइन when we cancel a registration ab initio, there is no possibility of that person existing on paper on that particular day when he has made this transaction. So these are all the challenges that all the GST implementing authorities are facing across the country. कभी कभी देख के लगता है कि भाई इसकी क्या गलती थी, ये वाला ट्रांजैक्शन तो जेन्यून था. बट द क्रिटिकल challenges that we have does not give us the liberty to be subjective. Subjective का मतलब ये है कि फलाना ने तो इसको जो है ना सही माना लेकिन दूसरे आदमी ने उसको गलत माना. बट इन जीएसटी देयर आर सर्टेन थिंग्स वेयर इन द सिस्टम विल वीड आउट. अब कल को क्या हो जाएगा कि अल्टीमेटली जो सिगरेट पी रहा है वो मोहल्ले से बाहर हो जाएगा, तो बाद में बेमतलब का बाकी बच्चों को थप्पड़ मारने का नहीं मिलेगा. तो ये वाली बात हो जाती है. आई थिंक आई मेड माई पॉइंट क्लियर. So now in the end I would see once we are done with the sharing of our impression, we will have an open house session जहां पे आपको जो भी लगता है, और आपको भी लगता है in the limited time frame, if there are any value additions that you want to bring to this discussion, I would request you the same. But before I embark on that, I request Mr. Mandar Gupte from E&Y to share his thoughts on the same.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I feel extremely lucky to share the dais with esteemed officers of some of the largest and fastest growing states in the country. Thanks a lot. Just as an outsider, I would like to share my views of how various revenue authorities, whether it is state or center, how they are helping towards revenue augmentation. Revenue authority is like a heart of any economy, like it's generating money through which various other initiatives are running. So what we have seen, they are always at a front foot of adoption of technology. So that is the biggest intervention which when any revenue authority is doing for last 10 to 12 years, which is indirectly or directly helping towards the revenue augmentation. the next stage of information technology adoption, which is leading to massive input towards revenue augmentation, is data. Like today, everyone is sitting on so much amount of live data. So I would like to talk about how it is helping in three ways. First is how the policymakers are working towards revenue augmentation. Like by having the data, you are able to have a visibility into what's going to happen in future. There are various ways of predictive analysis, which is forecasting revenue in the future with a certain degree of confidence, which is again helping state economy to commit certain funds to various initiatives. So that is a very important aspect which revenue authorities is playing and helping the state. Also, it's very important to make certain policy decisions, which is on the basis of availability of data, availability of good quality data, and the implementation of analytic tools, which CCD sir also talked about in his presentation, how Rajasthan has adopted overall analytics in the state. So that is how policymakers are working towards revenue augmentation. The second is tax officers. Now, we all talked about how various states are growing. Many states are growing 20-25% year on year. But the growth in the number of people or the tax officer available with any state or at a center is not growing in the same in the same ratio. So at this stage, again, the technology is helping various authorities where, say, having a risk-based analysis of taxpayers or having sophisticated tools like data analytics, which is reducing the burden on the officers, and they are able to focus on those 10% or the limited set of taxpayers which are helping the economy. So that way, the technology is going to help the overall revenue augmentation of any state. And third aspect of this important system is taxpayer. Okay, sir talked about how the refund cycles are being managed within 21 days. So that is a very important aspect. The overall ease of doing business for a taxpayer today is being much simplified by a tax authority. Nowadays, earlier tax authorities are seen as a probably a policing authority by a taxpayer, but nowadays the perception is changing a lot. Now a taxman is seen as a probably a business partner who can help a taxpayer to do a business in a better way. So by having various initiatives which will ease out his day-to-day operations, is leading towards revenue augmentation. And what I strongly believe is the next wave of automation, which probably every state or center tax authority needs to keep in mind, is all the emerging technologies which are going to come in. Whether it's a blockchain, which will have a large implication for land records or excise, or generative AI, which will have a large implication on how services can be given to taxpayer, which will ultimately lead towards revenue augmentation and revenue enhancement. So just to summarize, data and technology is helping all tax authorities, all the revenue authorities towards revenue generation in the positive way. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of all the states that are participating in this discussion, Mr. Gupte spoke about the significance of data and the significance of data analysis for revenue augmentation. Now, I'll also take this opportunity to request my friend and senior officer from the GST Council, the Joint Secretary, to think about curating a program that empowers all the tax administrators, especially the commissioners, the additional commissioners, in the process of data analysis, in the context of whether it is BOWEB training or whether it is training related to GST network or whether it is a training related to creating systems for data analysis, uh, uh, in terms of empowering them with new tools that artificial intelligence and quantum computing is offering, so that all of us can be new age administrators. So ma'am, I would request you to consider curating a training program, a certified training program to all administrators, wherein after the training, they'll at least be in a position to understand the nuances and the requirements of data analysis, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. So the floor is now open. So if there are any issues, आपकी ओर से कोई भी suggestion किसी भी प्रकार का हो, I think the mic should now be made mobile. Please don't divert from the central theme, that is revenue augmentation.
Thank you for a lovely presentation, sir. I'll be very brief. Learned Chhattisgarh CCT Sahab has raised a very appropriate industry issue. And Surpur Sahab, in his classic style, made each and every person sitting in the hall understand that how एक सिगरेट पीने वाला है उसको भी कैसे बाहर करना है सिस्टम से. Very fine, sir. We do understand this aspect. एक और डायमेंशन इसी पैनल डिस्कशन में जो आया कि हमारे जो भी डिस्कशन है, इट शुड बी विद द स्टेट और अ नेशनल पॉलिसी. क्या ये अप्रोच कितनी करेक्ट है कि वो एक जो रूम में सिगरेट वाला है उसके साथ कोई भी खड़ा है उससे आउट हो, उसके ऊपर सिर्फ एक लाइन करना चाहिए. एक बात ऐड करना चाहूंगा, एक डायमेंशन. आज का एरा वो नहीं है जहां पर सारे के सारे जो बिजनेस ट्रांजैक्शंस हैं वो फिजिकल मूवमेंट से हो रहे हैं या फिर फिजिकल नोन पर्सन से हो रहे हैं. वी आर इन अ डिजिटल इंडिया एरा. So many business transactions are being done through the digital portals, whereby I actually don't know कि दूसरा आदमी क्या है. Maybe India Mart, maybe some B2B business things are there. I take all of my transportation from the B2B. I don't know who's the person who's giving me the transportation. He just raises me the GST invoice. I know that he is a registered person. I make him a payment. So अगर मान के चलिए ऐसे सिचुएशन में अगर उस आदमी का रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल हो जाता है जिसको मैं जानता ही नहीं हूं, तो वो कितना स्टेट पॉलिसी के साथ जाता है. क्या वो डिजिटल इंडिया को सपोर्ट करता है या फिर सारी इंडस्ट्री, अगर यही अप्रोच रहेगी तो क्या सारी इंडिया, सारे बिजनेसमैन इस चीज से दूर नहीं होने लगेंगे कि हम डिजिटल ट्रांजैक्शन करें ही नहीं. सो ये एक बस इस लाइट में कि ये कितना ठीक है. ओके, जस्ट लास्ट लाइन. अगर ऐसा होता, आपके स्टाइल में ही बात करूंगा सर, मैंने मेरे फ्रेंड को लाइटर सिगरेट लाके दिया होता और मैं नहीं पी रहा हूं, even then probably I am a culprit in that. यानी कि अगर किसी भी तरीके से बायर का कोलिजन है सामने वाले के साथ, then it is fine. बट जब मैं उसको जानता ही नहीं हूं तो प्रोबेबली मैं अपने बिजनेस डायमेंशंस को पुराने एरा में ले जाने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं. थैंक यू.
देखिए, we have acknowledged it as a critical challenge. Here we are not even talking in terms of morality कि उसके साथ करना चाहिए नहीं कर. See, it is a challenge that we acknowledge. The even central theme of the topic remains the challenges and opportunities. And a person doesn't get cancelled only because he has made that deal a non-existing, because that is another different challenge which Nidhi ji initially made out, the non-existing firms purely for the purpose of passing on the ITC. Now any kind of business transaction with that kind of person, we are not cancelling his registration, we are reversing the ITC. So these are critical challenges, and whatever you are talking about, I'm not denying that fact, but it is a challenge that we need to acknowledge, reckon with, and also think about solutions wherein the business interests don't get hurt deeply. We acknowledge the same.
It doesn't happen that the trader or the taxpayer is not given any opportunity. A proper memo is issued, the questions are asked, then the answers are received. After that only it happens. And secondly, it doesn't happen through digital transaction. Most often what we have witnessed in Mumbai is ITCs are given and they run away in 3 months' time. So buyer beware principle is there since times the trading started. So it is somewhere the responsibility also of the taxpayer, the registered entity, because you are registered on behalf of the state government, on behalf of the central government, to collect taxes from the citizens and deposit it with the state. There is a kind of warrant given to you in the name of that registration. You can't shirk your responsibility by saying that you don't know people face to face.
There is one more thing, one more analysis, with your permission. There is one more analysis that was made because Government of India started this drive against fake registration. I hope everybody knows about the same. Lot of activities happen, lot of these kind of networks and rackets were taken to task in a state like Gujarat, wherein all the identity cards were misused, the Aadhaar card and the mobile number coupling, like people were asked to fetch their data in the name of giving some kind of benefit under some government program. They were misused. So many such rackets came up. Then there was an analysis also ki why the system of fake ITC has been in operation since ages, since the time of VAT or before that, the sales tax time. So then what they realized was that one of the biggest reason, or one of the biggest churner of fake ITC happens to be the scrap industry, especially the ferrous and non-ferrous scrap. Looking into the same, a high-powered committee has been constituted, wherein even Rajasthan also happens to be a member of the same. We are exploring options whether RCM on scrape can be a reality, because that would take away the biggest problem of fake ITC. So all these things have been acknowledged, and we are heading towards solution. Over to you.
My point, intention of raising that point was, can we think of something like the e-KYC that is done when we open an account? Know your customers, something like that. So can the business associations, the trade associations think of on those lines, that when you are purchasing something, when you are buying something, you know your uh, from whom you are buying, some sort of mechanism. How feasible is that? I wanted to throw that question to the floor. So thank you.
Can we have a couple of more questions?
सर एक
Please,
मेरा
please.
सर मेरा एक सजेशन था इसी के ऊपर कि जैसे हम ऑनलाइन ट्रांजैक्शन करते हैं, जैसे फ्लिपकार्ट अमेजोन पे भी सेलर्स अलग अलग होते हैं, तो हम उनके रिव्यूज देख के कि इसके रिव्यूज अच्छे हैं तो उस ढंग से हम उससे परचेज करते हैं। क्या जीएसटी में भी ऐसे हो सकता है कि हम जीएसटी नंबर उनका डालें और हमें पता चल जाए कि ये इतना पुराना रजिस्टर्ड है और इतने की ट्रांजैक्शन हो चुकी है, और हमें मतलब उससे पता चल जाए जो बिजनेस टू बिजनेस ट्रांजैक्शन है उसमें भी कि ये जेन्युइन है, ताकि वो मतलब फेक आईटीसी वाला इशू ना हो।
बहुत अच्छा सुझाव है। इसमें हमें वो एक्सप्लोर करना पड़ेगा, टू व्हाट एक्सटेंट a third party data can be shared with the other person. Now that is something wherein whether we are compromising, क्योंकि क्या है ना, इसमें जो है like right to information, only limited data access can be given. I think people from the GST council and they are paying. Sorry, जी, so they have not seen the light of the day. Yes, Bachnesh जी.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन निधि मैम से है। मैम, सर्विस सेक्टर का रोल इकोनॉमी में काफी बढ़ रहा है, तो महाराष्ट्र का कोई एक्सपीरियंस आप बता सकते हैं कि सर्विस सेक्टर से हम किस तरह से टैप कर सकते हैं रेवेन्यू ऑगमेंटेशन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से?
GST only brought services sector under the state government's ambit. Otherwise, it was with the central government only. Even though we have spent 6 years, it has not yet been tapped to the extent it can be tapped. But we have found in certain investigations in hospitality sector, in even healthcare services, in real estate, construction related also, there have been some good cases which have been found out. But one-on-one, I believe that even the tax administrators in the state government are not yet hands-on while doing the audits or the scrutinies of services sector, because it's a new arena, and from VAT time or Bombay sales tax time, they were used to manufacturing sector. They know manufacturing sector mein kaise kaam hota hai. But the e-commerce or the services, even today, I feel there is some kind of a hesitation in conducting these investigation or in understanding the nuances of it. So probably there also the GST Council can probably come handy and can they organize. It's not that a lot of training programs are being conducted, a lot of online seminars and workshops are being conducted by GST to ensure that state administrators are more hands-on with services. Whatever cases we have done, a lot of them have ended up in High Court of Bombay, and that's where I say that not yet comfortable with services.
Just to answer that point of yours, ma'am, there was an earlier GST Council meeting where this was flagged by all the states that they would like more exposure to services. So there is a training arm of the CBIC, which is called the NASAN, National Academy of Customs, Indirect Taxes and Narcotics. So that has been mandated. And when I was in NASAN Vizag, we used to co-opt state tax officers whenever training and services were going on, ma'am. So Mumbai NASAN, you can tie up, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because when I personally used to take those classes, I found that the state tax officers are very interested in learning about services, especially place of supply and the anti-evasion cases that we had done in services and all. They were very interested in knowing. So, and they had come up with wonderful ideas about taxing port services and all during that time.
सर वन मोर क्वेश्चन सर
Please,
रितेश सर से है मेरा सर आपका मिनरल रिच स्टेट है तो वहाँ आरसीएम से हमें काफी रेवेन्यू मिलता है जैसे राजस्थान भी मिनरल रिच स्टेट है तो कोई स्पेशल अरेंजमेंट्स वहाँ पे कुछ किया हुआ है जिससे कि आरसीएम इंश्योर कर सके कि पूरा पैसा आ जाए
I think what Rajasthan is following, we are following the same. And,
Ma'am-
yeah, maybe Rajasthan would like to.
नहीं नम्रता मैम सजेस्टेड कि अगर रमन्ना को हम ईवे बिल से कहीं कनेक्ट करके
Yeah,
और कुछ किया जा सके
that
So
we
that-
are now exploring to integrate various systems for mining, then EVA bill analytics, everything else. For mining sector, we are coming up with a very comprehensive Khanij Online version 2.0. Incidentally, I am also the Joint Secretary for Electronics and IT for the state of Chhattisgarh. So we here at CHIPS are developing it for mining department, and we intend to integrate that with our tax softwares, and similarly use Parivahan, what is that portal for the Vahan, and other such. The idea is to integrate all the various systems that are there with the sole outcome of augmenting the revenue. And while we are talking about using of technology and integrating it, in the morning session we were discussing whether can we explore the possibility of adding way bridges, smart way bridges with Bharatmala projects, the new roads that are coming up with the toll, where we have a system of FASTag, and whether uh, lorry of say 2 tons, a threshold limit of the vehicle, when it passes through that toll, it generates an alert, or it captures that data, that because the problem, the modus operandi of tax evasion through e-way bill is that circular trading, or using the same e-way bill multiple times. If we capture the weight of the vehicle that is passing through the tolls, yeah, there will be challenges, like there may be other routes also, but maybe say Delhi Mumbai industrial corridor is coming. So in those high traffic area, can we think on those lines and then integrating it to our GSTN portal or e-way bill, or such other platforms. So we need to deliberate, brainstorm, and think of ways how can we leverage technologies in order to enforce tax disciplines. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर
मैं वापस 2 बातें बताऊंगा. अगेन अपने ही हिसाब से एग्जांपल बताऊंगा. देखो, आई हैव नॉट बीन अ वेरी गुड चाइल्ड. तो यूजुअली क्या होता है, आप स्कूल जा रहे हो कि ना नहीं जा रहे हो, पेरेंट्स को जब नहीं पता चलता है तो आपके दोस्त का पूछता है कि एग्जाम कब है, स्कूल कब जा रहे हो, वो कितने मार्क्स लाता है, दूसरे तीसरे को पूछते हो. सो दिस इज व्हाट वी कॉल इट एज इंटीग्रेटेड रेवेन्यू मैनेजमेंट सिस्टम. कि अगर ट्रांसपोर्ट का बढ़ रहा है तो तुम्हारा क्यों घट रहा है, अगर एक्साइज बढ़ रहा है तो तुम्हारा वैट क्यों नहीं आ रहा है. So that is what is integrated revenue management system, wherein you are unable to monitor one single entity. So what you do is you create a system wherein multiple factors get monitored at the same time, and the trend differences, obviously there could be a changes, there could be variations, but they should be one for which you can attribute them to some reason or logic. If it is not, then it means that there is a potential gap in your revenue mobilization. एक बात ये बताना चाहूंगा. दूसरा, since we are talking about revenue augmentation, we fail to forget, we totally fail to remember the fact that हम जो adjudication order कर रहे हैं, अगर वो sustain होता है तो you get the revenue. But most of the times, because of a faulty adjudication order which comes out hastily, without application of mind, without a proper show cause notice, and without any kind of proper intimation notice, you cannot expect that to be a sustainable order, that which gets revenue for you. तो हमेशा ये जरूर रखे अपन कि if the adjudication order is much more legal, much more legally tenable and sustainable, then the possibility of getting revenue through this process of adjudication increases. अब हम लोगों के पास एक ही है कि DRC 3 से जो आ गया वो आ गया. Otherwise, once it goes into litigation, many a times, even the judicial authorities, for the trivial reasons, कि whether your adjudication order went beyond the scope of the show cause notice, or whether your show cause notice went beyond the scope of whatever intimation or whatever you have made out. Now, all these things become very important. मैं यही मानता हूं कि अगर आपको continuously revenue flow चाहिए, तो आपके systems अच्छे होना चाहिए. That includes a very robust, legally tenable, and an efficient adjudication mechanism also.
Thank you, sir.
So I think with these few words, and if there is anybody who is left out with closing remarks, I think I'm very happy that out of 60 minutes, we have already done with 55 minutes without anybody yawning or without anybody going out again and again without any reason. We have done it. But before actually somebody starts doing that, I think we want to close it. So please, sir. Shall we? Thank you very much.